The harsh crack of shoulder pads colliding echoed across Westbrook High's practice field as Connor Blake shoved Riley Martinez hard onto the wet grass. "Look at this pathetic little rabbit," the quarterback's voice boomed across the field. His phone held high as he live-streamed to over 2,000 viewers on Instagram. "Too weak to even sit in our bleachers." 3 massive football players formed a tight circle around the 17-year-old girl, their shadows blocking out the late afternoon Texas sun. Riley slowly pushed herself up from the muddy ground, dirt streaking her white button-down shirt. But her dark eyes held no trace of fear. Instead, there was something cold and calculating in her gaze that Connor would remember for the rest of his life. What he didn't know was that in exactly 15 minutes, he and his entire team would be wearing handcuffs in front of those same live-stream viewers. Riley dusted off her jeans with methodical precision, her movements unnaturally controlled for someone who'd just been assaulted. The other students gathering around the practice field whispered among themselves, phones already recording what they assumed would be another typical Westbrook High bullying incident. But Sophia Kim, the 16-year-old school newspaper editor watching from the press box, noticed something the others missed. Riley's stance wasn't that of a victim. Her feet were positioned in perfect defensive balance, her weight distributed like someone trained in combat tactics. Before we dive deeper into this incredible story, I want to take a moment to thank you for being here. Stories like Riley's need to be told because they remind us that heroes can come from the most unexpected places. If this story moves you or reminds you of your own struggles with injustice, please consider leaving a comment below, sharing your thoughts. Your engagement helps us reach more people who need to hear that they're not powerless, that bullies don't always win, and that sometimes the underdogs write the most satisfying endings. Now, let's return to that practice field where everything was about to change. Connor Blake was everything Westbrook High worshipped: 6'3" of quarterback perfection, son of the school board chairman, and holder of a full-ride scholarship to the University of Texas. His Letterman jacket bore patches from 3 state championships, and his Instagram followers hung on his every post like gospel. Behind him stood his usual crew: Jake Morrison, the linebacker whose family struggled to pay rent, but whose blocking skills guaranteed Connor's protection, and Tyler Brooks, the running back who'd do anything to stay in the popular crowd's good graces. "You think you can just waltz onto our field and act like you belong here?" Connor sneered, stepping closer to Riley. The livestream comments were already flooding in with fire emojis and laughing faces. "This is where champions train, not where scholarship kids come to play pretend." Riley's response was barely above a whisper, but every word carried weight. Actually, according to Texas Education Code Section 21.914, all students have equal access to school facilities during designated hours. Her voice held an odd confidence that made Connor's smirk falter slightly. "Perhaps you should review the district's anti-bullying policy while you're at it." Jake Morrison laughed, but it sounded forced. "Listen to little Miss Lawyer over here. You memorize the whole handbook, nerd?" What none of them noticed was how Riley's right hand had slipped into her backpack, fingers finding a device that definitely wasn't standard school supplies. The small recording unit activated with a barely audible click. Its advanced noise-canceling technology designed to capture crystal-clear audio, even in chaotic environments. Her smartwatch, which looked ordinary enough, began transmitting GPS coordinates and biometric data to a location that would have shocked them all. "You know what your problem is?" Tyler Brooks stepped forward, emboldened by the growing crowd of spectators. "You don't understand your place in the food chain here. Westbrook has rules, and scholarship kids like you need to learn them fast." Riley's eyes swept the practice field with the methodical precision of someone conducting surveillance. She noted the security camera positions, the blind spots, the exit routes. Her breathing remained perfectly steady, despite the escalating tension. A discipline that came from extensive training most 17-year-olds never received. "Speaking of rules," Riley said quietly, "I'm curious about the academic standards required to maintain athletic eligibility. Must be challenging to balance a 3.5 GPA with such demanding practice schedules." The comment hit its mark. Connor's jaw tightened, and Jake exchanged a worried glance with Tyler. How could this random new girl know about their academic struggles? The grade-fixing arrangement with certain teachers was supposed to be completely confidential. "What are you implying?" Connor's voice dropped to a dangerous level as he moved closer, the phone still streaming to his rapidly growing audience. "You better watch your mouth before it gets you in serious trouble." But Riley wasn't backing down. Instead, she did something completely unexpected. She smiled. "I'm not implying anything," she said, her hand still hidden in her backpack. "I'm simply observing that your team's academic performance shows some interesting patterns. Almost statistical anomalies, you might say." The weight of her words settled over the group like a heavy blanket. These weren't random observations from a nervous transfer student. This was someone who'd done research, someone who knew things she shouldn't know. Connor's livestream viewer count had jumped to over 4,000 as word spread about the confrontation. Comments flooded in calling for action, many viewers expecting to see the new girl humiliated or worse. But Sophia Kim, still watching from the press box, was documenting everything with her own camera, instinctively sensing this wasn't going to end the way everyone expected. "You've got quite the mouth on you for someone who just transferred here 3 months ago," Jake Morrison said, cracking his knuckles in a gesture meant to intimidate. "Maybe it's time someone taught you about respect." Riley's watch buzzed with an incoming message, displayed in a coded format that would mean nothing to casual observers but everything to the right people. "Package confirmed. Proceeding to Phase 2. She responded with a subtle tap pattern that activated emergency protocols. 3 months is plenty of time to learn about a place," Riley replied, her voice maintaining that same unsettling calm. "Especially when you know what to look for. For instance, I've learned that certain students here have access to performance-enhancing substances that aren't exactly legal for high school athletics." The silence that followed was deafening. Tyler Brooks went pale, his hand instinctively moving toward his gym bag where evidence of Riley's accusation sat hidden. Connor's livestream comments exploded with speculation and demands for more drama. But the quarterback himself had gone very still. "That's a serious accusation," Connor said slowly. "I hope you can back it up." "Oh, I can back up everything I say," Riley assured him. "Documentation is very important, don't you think? Especially when dealing with systematic violations of NCAA regulations." While Riley spoke, her fingers worked inside her backpack with practiced efficiency. The advanced recording equipment she carried wasn't available to ordinary civilians. These devices featured timestamp forensics, noise-canceling technology, and real-time encryption capabilities that ensured every word was being preserved as legally admissible evidence. The sophisticated gear was designed specifically for gathering intelligence in hostile environments, allowing operatives to build airtight cases against criminal organizations. For anyone facing situations where truth needed to be preserved and justice demanded proof, such technology represented the difference between word against word and irrefutable documentation. The implications of Riley's words were spreading through the crowd like wildfire. Students who'd been laughing and recording suddenly found themselves witnessing something far more serious than typical high school drama. The mention of NCAA violations meant college scholarships were at risk, futures could be destroyed, and the untouchable status of Westbrook's football program might be in jeopardy. "You're playing a dangerous game," Connor warned. But for the first time since the confrontation began, uncertainty crept into his voice. "My father chairs the school board. One phone call from me, and you'll be expelled by tomorrow morning." Riley's response was to pull her phone from her pocket and begin typing with lightning speed. Within seconds, she'd uploaded encrypted files to multiple cloud servers, each one containing data that would make Connor's father's political connections irrelevant. "Funny thing about evidence," she said without looking up from her screen, "it tends to speak louder than political influence, especially when it's properly documented and distributed to the right authorities." Jake Morrison had heard enough. The linebacker lunged forward with the intention of grabbing Riley's phone, but something extraordinary happened. Riley moved with fluid precision, sidestepping his charge while simultaneously redirecting his momentum. Jake found himself stumbling past her, crashing into Tyler Brooks, and sending both players sprawling onto the grass. The crowd erupted in shocked gasps and excited chatter. Connor's live stream exploded with comments as viewers tried to process what they'd just witnessed. The quiet transfer student had just made two varsity football players look like amateurs. "Holy cow," someone in the crowd whispered. "Did you see how fast she moved?" But Riley wasn't done. As Jake and Tyler scrambled to their feet, she continued her work on her phone, fingers flying across the screen with the efficiency of someone who'd done this many times before. The cloud backup was complete. The authorities had been notified, and Phase 2 was officially in motion. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life," Connor snarled, his carefully maintained image cracking as rage took over. "Nobody disrespects the Westbrook Eagles and gets away with it." He pocketed his phone and stepped toward Riley with clear intent to escalate beyond words. The crowd sensed the shift, some pulling out their own phones to record, while others began backing away from what was about to happen. But Riley Martinez had been preparing for this moment for 3 months. Every insult, every threat, every display of entitled arrogance had been building toward this confrontation. As Connor Blake raised his hand with the intention of putting the scholarship kid in her place, Riley's fingers found the final button on her hidden device. The emergency signal transmitted instantly to a location 40 miles away, where her backup had been waiting for exactly this moment. As Connor's hand moved toward her, Riley's lips curved into the slightest smile. "You're absolutely right about one thing," she told him quietly, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent practice field. "Nobody's getting away with anything." The next 60 seconds would rewrite everything the students of Westbrook High thought they knew about power, privilege, and justice. Connor's fist cut through the air with brutal intent, aimed directly at Riley's face, while 4,000 live-stream viewers watched in real time. But what happened next defied every expectation the crowd had formed about the quiet transfer student. Riley's movement was poetry in motion. She deflected Connor's punch with a precise block, pivoted on her back foot, and used his own momentum to send the 200-pound quarterback sprawling across the practice field. The technique was flawless, clinical, and absolutely not something a typical high school student should possess. The crowd exploded in disbelief. Jake Morrison charged forward with a roar of fury, but Riley was already 3 steps ahead. She ducked under his wild swing, swept his legs, and watched as the linebacker crashed into the equipment rack with a thunderous clang that echoed across the entire field. "Holy cow," Sophia Kim breathed from the press box, her camera capturing every impossible moment. "Who is this girl?" Tyler Brooks hesitated, suddenly understanding that his running back speed meant nothing against someone who could predict his moves before he made them. But Connor, his pride shattered along with his live-stream persona, wasn't finished. He scrambled to his feet and pulled something from his gym bag that made several students scream. "You want to play games?" Connor snarled, brandishing a metal weight from the training equipment. "Let's see how tough you really are." But as Connor raised the makeshift weapon, something small and rectangular tumbled from Riley's torn backpack. The plastic card skittered across the grass, face up, and Jake Morrison's eyes went wide as he read the text printed in official government font. "DEA Junior Agent Program," Jake whispered, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent field. "Riley Martinez, authorized personnel only." The revelation hit the crowd like a physical blow. Phones that had been recording typical high school drama were now documenting something far more serious. Riley Martinez wasn't just some transfer student who'd gotten lucky with a few defensive moves. She was law enforcement. Connor's weapon-wielding hand began to shake as the implications crashed down on him. "This is impossible," he stammered. "You're 17 years old. You can't be a federal agent." Riley straightened her torn shirt and picked up the fallen ID card with casual efficiency. "Junior Agent Program," she corrected calmly. "Think of it as a very specialized internship. One that's been documenting every aspect of Westbrook High's criminal activities for the past 3 months." As the situation continued to spiral beyond anyone's control, Riley's thoughts turned to the critical importance of preserving and sharing evidence in legal proceedings. The cloud storage platforms she'd been using featured military-grade encryption and automatic backup systems that ensured no corruption or tampering could occur. These specialized services didn't just store data, they provided comprehensive legal support, chain of custody documentation, and direct integration with law enforcement databases. For anyone facing injustice and needing bulletproof methods to preserve truth, such platforms represented the difference between having your story believed and having it dismissed. The technology had evolved to serve those brave enough to stand up against powerful adversaries, ensuring that evidence would survive any attempt at suppression or retaliation. Tyler Brooks was backing away now, his face pale as understanding dawned. "The questions about our grades, the drug testing comments, the academic eligibility issues," he stammered. "You've been investigating us this whole time." 3 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days to be precise, Riley confirmed. "Long enough to document systematic grade fraud, performance-enhancing drug distribution, recruitment violations, and financial improprieties that trace all the way up to the district superintendent's office." Connor's live stream had reached over 8,000 viewers, but instead of the humiliation video he'd planned, he was broadcasting his own confession to federal crimes. The comments section had transformed from mindless entertainment into real-time witness testimony as viewers began to understand what they were actually watching. "My father will destroy you," Connor threatened, but his voice lacked conviction. "He has connections you can't imagine." Riley's response was interrupted by the distant sound of vehicles approaching fast. The rumble of engines grew louder as a convoy of black SUVs rounded the corner of the school building. Emergency lights flashing, but sirens silent. The vehicles moved with military precision across the practice field, surrounding the area with tactical efficiency. "Your father's connections are about to become his biggest liability," Riley said, as the SUVs screeched to a halt. "See, Richard Blake isn't just the school board chairman. He's also been taking kickbacks from the college recruitment industry, fixing grades for profit, and laundering money through the athletic department's booster fund." The SUV doors opened in perfect synchronization, and men and women in tactical gear emerged with weapons drawn. But leading the charge was someone who made Riley's composed mask finally crack into a genuine smile. "Agent Martinez, DEA," the tall Hispanic man announced, his voice carrying the authority of 20 years in federal law enforcement. "And before anyone asks, yes, she's my daughter." The practice field erupted into chaos. Students scattered in every direction while Connor's live stream audience watched federal agents swarm Westbrook High's most protected students. Jake Morrison tried to run, but found himself face down in the grass with zip ties around his wrists before he'd taken 10 steps. "This is Agent Martinez to base," Riley's father spoke into his radio. "We have the primary targets in custody, requesting additional units for the administrative building." Tyler Brooks fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "I just wanted to fit in," he sobbed. "I never meant for it to go this far." But Connor Blake wasn't going down quietly. Even as agents moved to apprehend him, he kept his phone raised, live streaming his own arrest to an audience that had swelled to over 15,000 viewers. "This is a setup," he screamed into the camera. "My father will have all of your badges. This is harassment. This is the consequence of thinking privilege makes you untouchable," Agent Martinez interrupted as he snapped handcuffs onto Connor's wrists. "Your live stream just became evidence in a federal case, son. Hope those viewer numbers were worth it." As the football players were loaded into the back of unmarked vehicles, Principal Garrett came running from the main building, his face flushed with panic and confusion. "What's the meaning of this?" he demanded. "You can't just storm onto school property and arrest our students without—" His words died as Agent Martinez held up a thick folder of documentation. "Principal Garrett, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, money laundering, and violation of federal education statutes. You have the right to remain silent." The dominoes continued falling with devastating precision. Coach Davidson emerged from the field house only to find himself surrounded by agents. Board members who'd been attending an emergency meeting in the administrative building were escorted out in handcuffs as news vans arrived and reporters set up their cameras. Sophia Kim watched from the press box as the story she'd been investigating for months exploded into national headlines in real time. Her phone was already ringing with calls from major news networks who'd picked up Connor's live stream and realized they were witnessing the exposure of systematic corruption in American high school athletics. As the last of the conspirators were loaded into federal vehicles, Agent Martinez approached his daughter with a mixture of pride and concern. "You okay, Riley?" he asked quietly, his parental instincts overriding his professional demeanor. "I'm fine, Dad," she assured him. 3 months of pretending to be a helpless scholarship kid was worth it to see the looks on their faces. "The pretending is over," he said. "The network we've uncovered goes deeper than we initially thought. College recruiters, booster organizations, even some professional teams have connections to this operation." As the federal convoy prepared to leave Westbrook High, Connor's abandoned phone continued live streaming from the grass where it had fallen. The viewer count had reached over 20,000, with comments flooding in from across the country as the story spread on social media. Riley picked up the phone and looked directly into the camera, addressing the thousands of viewers who'd witnessed the entire confrontation. "To everyone watching this," she said, her voice carrying the weight of everything she'd endured over the past 3 months. "Justice isn't always immediate, but it's always possible. Document everything. Trust the process. And remember that the truth has a way of surfacing no matter how deep people try to bury it." She ended the live stream and handed the phone to a forensics technician who bagged it as evidence. The practice field was empty now, except for scattered equipment and the memory of how quickly power could shift when truth finally came to light. 3 weeks later, the Westbrook High scandal had become a case study in federal law enforcement academies and a cautionary tale in school districts across the nation. Connor Blake, Jake Morrison, and Tyler Brooks were awaiting trial on federal charges. Principal Garrett had been sentenced to 15 years in prison. The entire football program had been suspended indefinitely. But as Riley packed her belongings for transfer to a new assignment, she received a text message from an unknown number that made her blood run cold. "Phase 1 complete. Impressive work. Ready for Phase 2? She looked out her bedroom window and spotted a black sedan parked across the street, its occupants hidden behind tinted windows. The license plate was government-issued, but not from any agency she recognized. Her father appeared in the doorway, his face grim as he held his own phone displaying an identical message. "It seems the Westbrook network was bigger than we thought," he said quietly. "Someone's been watching us. Watch them." Riley's expression shifted from relief to alert wariness as she realized their victory might have been just the opening move in a much larger game. The scholarship girl persona was dead, but her real work was apparently just beginning. She looked at the mysterious text one final time, her dark eyes scanning each word with the analytical precision that had made her such an effective undercover operative. The message glowed ominously on her phone screen, its implications rippling through her mind like stones thrown into still water. Whatever organization had been pulling strings behind the Westbrook conspiracy was clearly far more sophisticated than they'd initially realized, and now they knew exactly who had brought down their carefully constructed network. Riley's finger hovered over the delete button for a moment longer, savoring the weight of the decision. 3 months ago, she'd been a frightened scholarship student, desperately trying to blend in while gathering evidence. Now she was a federal agent who'd just dismantled a multi-million-dollar corruption ring with nothing but patience, intelligence, and unshakable determination. She deleted the message with a cold smile that would have made Connor Blake's blood freeze, her expression reflecting the steel core that had always lurked beneath her quiet exterior. "Let them come," she whispered to the gathering darkness outside her window. "Game's just getting started."